Imagine being so fast that even Olympic legends look slow. So dominant that breaking records wasn't enough, you shattered them. But what if I told you Usain Bolt's career almost ended before it even began? Standing at 6'5", 207 pounds, Bolt was built like no sprinter before him. His stride was absurdly long, his top speed unmatched, and his victories almost disrespectful. In a sport where winning by hundredths of a second is the norm, Bolt turned races into highlight reels. Slowing down before the finish, celebrating mid-race, he made world-class competitors look like amateurs. His records are still untouched, his speed still unmatched, his legacy undisputed. But was Usain Bolt truly the greatest sprinter ever, or just a physical anomaly who ran at the right time? Let's break it all down. For over a century, sprinting has been the ultimate test of human speed. From Jesse Owens to Carl Lewis, generations of sprinters have pushed their bodies to the limit for one goal: to be the fastest human on Earth. For decades, breaking the 10-second barrier in the 100 meters was considered impossible. Then came Usain Bolt, and suddenly, impossible looked easy. Before Bolt, the 100-meter world record had only dropped by 16 hundredths of a second over 20 years. Bolt crushed it by the same margin in just 15 months, 9.72 seconds, then 9.69, then 9.58. No one had ever seen anything like it. And the way he did it was unreal. In the 2008 Olympics, the biggest race of his life, Bolt didn't just win, he put on a show. At 70 meters, he was already so far ahead that he looked around, threw his arms out, and celebrated before crossing the finish line, something no sprinter had ever dared to do. Even after slowing down, he still ran 9.69 seconds. That's like cruising the final lap of a Formula One race and still winning by a mile. And here's the craziest part. 2008 wasn't even his peak. 1 year later, at the 2009 World Championships in Berlin, Bolt did something that still doesn't make sense: 9.58 seconds. 15 years later, no one has even come close. And it wasn't just the 100 meters. Bolt obliterated the 200 meters too, shattering records that had stood for decades. His 100-meter and 200-meter records have remained untouched since 2009. No one has ever run under 9.60 seconds. It's been 15 years. So what made Bolt unstoppable? Why could he do what no sprinter in history could? Some say it was his physical build. At 6'5", he was taller than every elite sprinter before him. Traditionally, sprinters are shorter for explosive acceleration, but Bolt rewrote the rules. His long legs gave him an unfair advantage. While most sprinters took 45 strides to complete the 100 meters, Bolt only needed 41. But there was a catch. A taller sprinter usually has a slower start, and in a race that lasts under 10 seconds, a bad start can cost you everything. So why didn't it stop Bolt? Because his top speed was absolutely ridiculous. At full stride, Bolt hit 27.8 miles per hour. For comparison, the average elite sprinter maxes out at 26 miles per hour. A cheetah runs 60 miles per hour. A car in a school zone is supposed to go 25 miles per hour. Think about that. Bolt was literally sprinting faster than the speed limit in most neighborhoods, and unlike other sprinters, he could hold that speed longer than anyone else. Some argue that Bolt was simply a genetic anomaly, that his height and stride gave him an unfair advantage. But if that were true, why hasn't another tall sprinter broken his records? There have been plenty of 6'5" sprinters. None of them are even close to Bolt's times. Why? Because raw talent alone doesn't create legends. Bolt's dominance wasn't just about his body. It was his mindset. Unlike most sprinters, Bolt didn't obsess over technical perfection. He ran loose, relaxed, effortless. While others tensed up under pressure, Bolt played to the crowd and had fun. That was his secret weapon, the perfect mix of genetics, insane speed, and an unshakable mentality. The numbers say yes, the records say yes. And unless someone breaks 9.58 seconds, his title as the fastest man in history isn't going anywhere. But here's the scary part. We never even saw the best version of Usain Bolt. He slowed down in races. He partied between Olympics. He barely even trained in his final years. And even with all of that, he's still untouchable. That's why Usain Bolt wasn't just great. He was the ultimate speed anomaly, and no one has come close since. Long before he became the fastest man in history, before the world screamed his name in packed Olympic stadiums, Usain Bolt was just a skinny kid from a small town in Jamaica. He wasn't born into wealth. He wasn't a child prodigy. And if you saw him as a kid, you wouldn't have guessed he'd become the greatest sprinter of all time. His childhood was filled with two things: sports and mischief. Growing up in Sherwood Content, a rural village with no fancy training facilities, Bolt spent most of his days racing his brother, playing cricket in the streets, and causing chaos at school. His parents, Wellesley and Jennifer Bolt, ran a local grocery store and tried to keep him focused on school. But there was one problem. Usain Bolt hated sitting still. From the moment he could walk, he wanted to run. His teachers couldn't control him. His parents couldn't slow him down. and the only place where he felt at peace was when he was moving at full speed. In Jamaica, sprinting isn't just a sport, it's a way of life. The island has produced some of the world's fastest runners, and if you wanted to be great, you had to stand out early. At 12 years old, Bolt got his first real test. His school hosted its annual sports day, and all the local kids came to race. That day, everything changed, because for the first time, Bolt realized something crazy. Nobody could beat him. Not the older kids, not the fastest sprinters in town. When he ran, he didn't just win, he destroyed everyone. His raw speed was undeniable. But at that moment, it wasn't just about talent anymore. It was about potential. The kind of potential that could turn a kid from a small town into a global superstar. In middle school, Bolt's speed caught the attention of Pablo McNeil, a former Olympic sprinter who became his coach. McNeil saw something special in Bolt, but there was a problem. Bolt didn't take training seriously. At 14, he was lazy, playful, and addicted to junk food. He skipped training to play video games. He ate KFC like it was a food group. And worst of all, he didn't even like sprinting. His real love was cricket. Bolt wanted to be a fast bowler, not a sprinter. But McNeil knew something Bolt didn't. If he focused on sprinting, he could be one of the greatest athletes of all time. So the hard work began. Bolt trained harder than ever. He ran on dirt tracks. He lifted weights in a tiny school gym. And slowly, he started to believe. Maybe he was different. Maybe he was special. Maybe he was born to run. At 15 years old, Bolt got his first chance to prove himself on the international stage. He was selected to represent Jamaica at the 2002 World Junior Championships, the biggest competition for young sprinters. And here's the thing, Bolt wasn't just young, he was still growing. At 6 feet 3 inches, he was way taller than most sprinters his age, and nobody knew if his body could handle that kind of speed. But what happened next changed sprinting forever. In front of a packed stadium in Kingston with thousands of screaming Jamaican fans, Bolt ran like he had nothing to lose. He won gold in the 200 meters and became the youngest world junior champion in history. At 15 years old, it was a statement, a sign that something special was coming. That day, Bolt didn't just win a race, he became Jamaica's next great hope, but nobody realized his biggest challenge was just beginning. After his breakout in 2002, everyone expected Bolt to dominate the world of sprinting. Instead, his body started falling apart. By 16, Bolt had grown to 6 feet 5, taller than any sprinter before him. And with that rapid growth came serious injuries. Between 2003 and 2006, Bolt was constantly sidelined. Hamstring tears, back problems, struggles with technique. Every time he got healthy, he got injured again. And the pressure, it was unbearable. Jamaica had already crowned him the next big thing. But how could he be a world champion if he couldn't even stay on the track? Doubts started creeping in. Maybe he wasn't built for this. Maybe his height was more of a curse than a gift. And after years of setbacks, he almost quit sprinting altogether. By 2007, Bolt was tired of being the guy with potential. He wanted to be the best. That's when a new coach stepped in, the legendary Glenn Mills. And Mills had a simple message: if you want to be great, you need to stop playing around. So Bolt made a decision. No more skipping training. No more eating junk food. No more coasting on raw talent. He got stronger, faster, more focused than ever before. And in 2007, at the World Championships, he finally proved he was ready. He won silver in the 200 meters, just behind world champion Tyson Gay. It wasn't gold, but it didn't matter, because for the first time the world realized Usain Bolt was coming. And when he did, nobody would be ready. Most Olympic champions spend years chasing one world record. Usain Bolt shattered them all in 15 months. But how did he go from an injury-prone teenager to the most dominant sprinter in history? And what happened when he finally faced his biggest rivals on the biggest stage? In 2007, Usain Bolt was still just a name on the rise. He had talent, he had potential, but he wasn't feared yet. He wasn't a world champion, he wasn't a record breaker, and he certainly wasn't the face of sprinting. The world still belonged to Tyson Gay, Asafa Powell, and Justin Gatlin, men who had dominated the sprinting scene for years. At the 2007 World Championships, Bolt finally proved he was ready for the big stage. He won silver in the 200 meters, finishing just behind Tyson Gay, his first major international medal. But silver wasn't enough. Not for Bolt, not for Jamaica. He had proven he could compete. Now, it was time to take over. And when 2008 came around, everything changed. If you could pinpoint one year that turned Usain Bolt into a legend, it would be 2008. This wasn't just a breakthrough, it was the start of a global phenomenon. Bolt had been begging his coach, Glenn Mills, to let him run the 100 meters. For years, he had been a 200-meter specialist. But deep down, he knew if he got the chance, he could be the fastest man alive. His coach wasn't convinced. Bolt was too tall, too slow out of the blocks. He hadn't proven he could handle the technical precision of the 100 meters. But Bolt refused to back down. And finally, in May 2008, he got his chance. His first real 100-meter race against world-class competition. And what happened next? No one saw coming. It was just another night at the Rewrote Grand Prix in New York City. The stadium wasn't packed, the race wasn't for an Olympic medal, but when the gun went off, Usain Bolt did something that made the world stop. He didn't just win the race, he broke the world record, 9.72 seconds. A man who wasn't even considered a 100-meter sprinter had just shattered the fastest time ever recorded. The track world couldn't believe it. And the scariest part? Bolt wasn't even fully trained for the 100 meters yet. This was just the beginning, because in a few months, he was about to change history forever. The 2008 Beijing Olympics were supposed to be the biggest showdown in sprinting history. All eyes were on Asafa Powell and Tyson Gay, the two biggest names in the 100 meters. Bolt? He was still new to the event. He had only run a handful of 100-meter races before the Olympics. Nobody expected him to dominate. But what happened next would go down as one of the most iconic moments in sports history. The stadium was packed, 91,000 people in attendance, millions more watching around the world. The fastest men on the planet lined up for the biggest race of their lives. The gun went off. For the first 30 meters, it looked like a normal race. Bolt had a decent start, but he wasn't pulling away yet. Then at 50 meters, everything changed. Bolt's top-end speed kicked in. One stride, two strides, and suddenly, he was gone. By 70 meters, Bolt was so far ahead, he slowed down. He threw his arms out, pounded his chest, started celebrating before the finish line. In sprinting, you're supposed to run through the line. Bolt? He made the Olympic final look like a casual jog. And the time? 9.69 seconds. He broke the Olympic record while showboating. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. The world had a new sprinting king, but he wasn't done yet. A few days later, Bolt lined up for his true event, the 200 meters. This time, there would be no celebrating early because he was chasing something bigger. The 200-meter world record belonged to Michael Johnson, one of the greatest sprinters ever. His time? 19.32 seconds. For years, people thought that record was untouchable. Then Bolt stepped onto the track. 19.30 seconds later, history was rewritten. 2 Olympic gold medals, 2 world records, and suddenly, the question wasn't who is the best sprinter in the world. It was, is this the fastest human to ever live? After Beijing 2008, Usain Bolt wasn't just a champion. He was a global icon. His celebrations, his charisma, his swagger, everything sprinting had been missing. And the scariest part? He was only 21 years old. If he had already shattered world records this early in his career, what was next? The world had no idea. And in 2009, Bolt would do something that defied logic. Because if 9.69 seconds was a joke to him, how fast could he really go? The answer? By 2009, Usain Bolt wasn't just the fastest man on the planet. He was redefining what speed even meant. At just 22 years old, he had already turned the Olympic Games into his personal playground, winning double gold in the 100 meters and 200 meters while setting world records. But here's the crazy part. He wasn't done. He had already proven he was the best. Now he wanted to do something even more ridiculous. He wanted to run faster than anyone in history. And at the 2009 World Championships, that's exactly what he did. Imagine stepping onto the track as the defending Olympic champion. The entire world is watching. Every sprinter in the race is there to beat you. And what do? You run the fastest 100 meters ever recorded, 9.58 seconds. That's not just a new world record. It's a number so absurd that even today, nobody has come remotely close. Before Bolt, the 100-meter world record had been broken by 0.16 seconds over 20 years. Bolt shaved off 0.16 seconds in just 15 months. Nobody had ever done that before. But the scary part? That wasn't the only record he set that day. The 200-meter world record already belonged to Bolt. He had set it at the 2008 Olympics, running 19.30 seconds and breaking Michael Johnson's legendary mark. But now, in Berlin 2009, Bolt wanted to go even further. And he did. 19.19 seconds. That number is so insane that it still doesn't make sense. No other sprinter in history has ever run under 19.26 seconds. Bolt was running at an average speed of 23.4 miles per hour. At that point, it wasn't just about winning races. It was about destroying records that were never supposed to be broken. And the gap between Bolt and everyone else, it was only getting wider. For decades, sprinters were built the same way. Short, explosive, and fast off the blocks. Then Bolt came along. He was 6'5", taller than any elite sprinter before him. His longer stride meant fewer steps and more efficiency. And his top speed was unmatched. While most sprinters needed over 45 strides to complete the 100 meters, Bolt did it in 41. That's 4 fewer steps, 4 fewer bursts of energy, and at full sprint, he hit 27.8 miles per hour, faster than a galloping horse, faster than most residential speed limits. And what made him even scarier? He could hold that top speed longer than anyone else. While most sprinters started slowing down at 60 meters, Bolt kept getting faster. That's why he made Olympic champions look like they were standing still. That's why his records still haven't been touched. It's not that there weren't great sprinters during Bolt's prime. There were. Tyson Gay was one of the fastest American sprinters ever. Johan Blake was Bolt's Jamaican training partner and a beast in his own right. Justin Gatlin was a former Olympic champion and Bolt's longest-standing rival. And yet, none of them ever truly threatened Bolt's reign. At the 2012 Olympics, Gatlin and Blake were at their peak, and Bolt, he still crushed them. In the 100-meter final, he ran 9.63 seconds, an Olympic record. In the 200-meter final, he ran 19.32 seconds and took gold again. By 2016, Gatlin was still trying to dethrone him. And guess what? Even though Bolt was past his prime, even though he had lost a step, he still won gold. That's how much better he was. Even at 90%, Bolt was still the best in the world. To understand just how dominant Bolt was, let's look at some numbers. He won 3 straight Olympic golds in the 100 meters in 2008, 2012, and 2016. He won 3 straight Olympic golds in the 200 meters as well. He held the world record in both events for over a decade. He earned 8 Olympic gold medals and 11 World Championship golds. No other sprinter has ever won 3 straight Olympic 100-meter titles. Not Jesse Owens, not Carl Lewis, not Maurice Green, only Usain Bolt. And even now, years after his retirement, his records remain untouched, because nobody has figured out how to run faster than 9.58. But Bolt's legacy isn't just about records, it's about what he did for the sport. Before Bolt, sprinting was all business, a serious, tense, high-pressure competition. Then he showed up, dancing, laughing, playing with the crowd, and then dominating his races anyway. He made sprinting fun, he made it a spectacle, and because of that, he became the most popular track athlete in history. Even casual sports fans knew his name. Even people who didn't watch the Olympics tuned in just to see him run. That's what true dominance looks like. Not just breaking records, but changing the game forever. That's the biggest question now. It's been 15 years since 9:58, and nobody has even come close. Will we ever see another Usain Bolt? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing's for sure, nobody will ever dominate sprinting like he did. Because Usain Bolt wasn't just a sprinter, he was the fastest human in history. And until someone breaks his records, he still is. For nearly a decade, Usain Bolt ruled sprinting like no one before him. He didn't just win, he humiliated world-class sprinters on the biggest stage. But staying on top? That's the real challenge. Because when you're the greatest, everyone is coming for you. And for Bolt, the road wasn't always smooth. Injuries, rivalries, pressure, every year, a new challenge. Some wanted to steal his crown. Some wanted to prove he was beatable. But for almost a decade, Bolt had one answer for all of them: run faster than they ever could. The problem with being too good is that you make everyone else look average. And for most of his career, Bolt was so dominant that his competition barely got mentioned. But there were a few sprinters who tried to take him down. Tyson Gay was the man who almost ended the Bolt era. Before Bolt arrived, Tyson Gay was the guy. By 2007, he was a triple world champion. In 2009, he ran 9.71 seconds, the fastest time ever recorded by someone not named Usain Bolt. His personal best of 9.69 seconds would have been a world record in any other era. But the problem? He was running in Bolt's era. Every time Tyson Gay ran a near-perfect race, Bolt ran an even better one. Gay never won an Olympic gold in the 100 meters or 200 meters because Bolt never gave him the chance. If there was one true rivalry in Bolt's career, it was with Justin Gatlin. The difference? Gatlin was already an Olympic champion in 2004. By the time Bolt arrived, Gatlin had been banned for doping and was making a comeback. By 2012, he was back at the Olympics. And for the first 40 meters of the 100-meter final, he was actually ahead of Bolt. Then Bolt hit his top gear. End of story. Gold went to Bolt in 9.63 seconds, an Olympic record. Gatlin finished with bronze in 9.79 seconds. Gatlin ran the race of his life, and it still wasn't enough. But the biggest showdown came years later. By 2015, Bolt was no longer untouchable. His body was breaking down. Injuries had kept him off the track most of the season, and for the first time in years, people doubted him. Because Gatlin was back, stronger, faster, and unbeaten in 2 years, running 9.7 seconds consistently. He looked like the new king of sprinting. The 100-meter final in Beijing was supposed to be Gatlin's moment. For 90 meters, it looked like he had it. Gatlin had a perfect start. He was ahead the entire race. But in the last 5 meters, Bolt did what only Bolt could do. He found an extra gear. He leaned at the line, and by 0.01 seconds, he won. 9.79 to 9.80, the closest victory of his career. But everyone knew his time at the top was running out. From the outside, Bolt made sprinting look effortless. Behind the scenes, his body was falling apart. Since he was a teenager, Bolt struggled with hamstring injuries. His long legs put extra strain on his muscles. By 2014, his hamstring problems were so bad, he considered retiring early. Most people don't know this, but Bolt has scoliosis. His spine curves abnormally, meaning one of his legs is slightly shorter than the other. Every time he sprinted, his body was fighting itself. By 2016, the pain was unbearable. Bolt planned to retire on top. He wanted one last gold at the 2017 World Championships, but in his final 100-meter race, for the first time in a decade, he lost. The winner was Justin Gatlin, the same man Bolt had beaten over and over again. And just like that, the Bolt era was over. As he got older, Bolt couldn't rely on raw speed alone. He had to evolve. Early in his career, Bolt's biggest weakness was his reaction time. By 2012, he had improved his launch just enough to avoid giving rivals an advantage. Instead of pushing full speed from the start, he conserved energy, then unleashed his top speed when it mattered most. Sprinting is 90% mental at the elite level. Every sprinter feared Bolt because they knew no lead was ever safe. Even when his body wasn't at its best, his mindset, confidence, and strategy kept him winning. By 2016, Bolt was past his prime. He had lost races, he was injured, he wasn't the same sprinter, but when the Olympics arrived, he still won. His third straight Olympic gold in the 100 meters and 200 meters. Nobody in history had ever done that. Even at 80%, he was still better than everyone else. That's how legendary he was. Every sprinter eventually slows down. The difference with Bolt, even when he wasn't at his fastest, he was still the greatest. Even when he was injured, he was still winning. And even when rivals gave their best, they still couldn't beat him. That's the difference between a champion and a legend. For nearly a decade, Usain Bolt was untouchable. He didn't just win races, he dominated them. He made world-class sprinters look like amateurs. But in sprinting, time is the one opponent no one can outrun. Every great athlete reaches a breaking point. For Bolt, the signs came slowly. A slight dip in top speed, more time recovering from injuries, close finishes in races he used to win with ease. And then, the truth became impossible to ignore. The fastest man in history was slowing down, and for the first time, the world began to wonder, was this the beginning of the end? The 2016 Rio Olympics was supposed to be Bolt's final masterpiece. A chance to do what no sprinter in history had ever done, win 3 straight Olympic gold medals in the 100 meters and 200 meters. But by now, Bolt was not the same athlete he was in 2008 or 2012. His hamstring problems were getting worse. His training wasn't as intense, and for the first time in years, he was no longer the undisputed fastest man in the world. Justin Gatlin and Andre de Grasse were closing the gap. The 100-meter final in Rio was one of the most highly anticipated races in Olympic history. Many believed it was the moment Bolt would finally be dethroned. The race started. As always, Bolt had a slow reaction time. For the first 30 meters, Gatlin was ahead. It looked like the upset was happening. Then, at 50 meters, Bolt did what only Bolt could do. 1 stride, 2 strides. And just like that, he was gone. By the 70-meter mark, the race was over. Bolt crossed the finish line in 9.81 seconds. Not his fastest time, not a world record, but it was enough. 3 Olympic 100-meter golds, 3 consecutive Olympic titles, something no sprinter had ever done before. It was the perfect way to close out his Olympic career, or at least, it should have been. The 200 meters had always been Bolt's event, the race he felt most comfortable in, the race where he set records that still stand today. But in Rio, something was different. For the first time in his Olympic career, he looked vulnerable. His usual mid-race explosion wasn't there. His top speed? Not as dominant as before. He still won gold, finishing in 19.78 seconds. But for a sprinter who had once run 19.19, this wasn't just a slowdown. It was a warning sign. Bolt's reign was nearing its end. After Rio, Bolt had one final goal: win gold one last time at the 2017 World Championships. If he could do that, he would retire as the undisputed greatest of all time. But reality had other plans. The 2017 season was a disaster from the start. His training was inconsistent, his body wasn't responding the way it used to, and in his first races of the year, he was losing. Not to world champions, not to Olympic medalists, but to runners he used to destroy. For the first time, the world saw a Bolt that looked human. The 100-meter final at the 2017 World Championships was the moment everything changed. Bolt's slow starts had always been his biggest weakness, but in his prime, his top-end speed made up for it. Now, that extra gear was gone. For the first time in his life, he couldn't catch up. Justin Gatlin crossed the finish line first. Bolt finished third. It was his first loss in a major championship final. And the saddest part? It wasn't even close. The man who had ruled sprinting for a decade had finally been beaten. And suddenly, it became clear. This was the end. Bolt had one last chance to finish his career on top. The 4x100-meter relay was supposed to be his final race. Jamaica was in position for a medal. Bolt was running the anchor leg. One last sprint, one last moment of greatness. But as soon as he took off, disaster struck. His hamstring snapped. He pulled up in pain, collapsing onto the track. It wasn't supposed to end this way, not for a champion like him. But there he was, lying on the track, watching his career end, not with gold, but with heartbreak. So, what really happened? Why did the fastest man in history slow down? It wasn't just age. It wasn't just injuries. It was everything combined. Sprinting at that level puts insane stress on the body. Bolt had been dealing with injuries since his teenage years, and by 2017, they had caught up with him. His uneven stride forced his body to compensate in ways that led to muscle imbalances and more injuries. After a decade of dominance, Bolt had nothing left to prove. He had already done it all. Bolt was never the hardest worker in practice, but as he got older, his training intensity dropped and it showed. After the 2017 World Championships, Bolt announced his retirement from sprinting. There would be no comeback, no final attempt to reclaim his throne. The fastest man in history had run his last race, and even though his final years weren't perfect, his legacy was already cemented in history. World record holder in the 100 meters and 200 meters, 3 straight Olympic gold medals in both events, 8-time Olympic champion, 11-time world champion. There will never be another Usain Bolt, and unless someone breaks 9.58, he will always be the fastest man to ever live.